Hello, hello and welcome. So my name is Andre Thompson. I'm the Alumni Data and Engagement Officer at Middlesex University, which means I'm responsible for graduates once they complete their studies at Middlesex, help them build communities and help with employability. And today I will be your host for the evening. So thank you very much for joining us on the special MDXequals Diversity and Inclusion Careers panel. This event is aimed at inspiring Black and minority students and alumni to consider job roles in various different industries. Our panel includes speakers from different career backgrounds who will talk to us about opportunities and challenges, plus their experiences breaking into their chosen professional fields. So to introduce our panel, we'll start off with Cherise Cole. So Cherise Cole is a digital forensic practitioner for the government. Cherise graduated from Middlesex University in 2017 with a BSc in computer forensics in computer. Sorry, I've got duplicate of words here. BSc in computer forensics, apologies, where she studied how to detect, investigate, and prevent computer crime. Cherise has now been working in the industry for over 3 years and in various different roles. And she's fascinated by technology development, with the best aspects of her job being that she's constantly learning. Thank you very much for joining us, Cerise.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Up next, we have Rochelle Thompson. So Rochelle is a third-year education study student at Middlesex University, a school governor and ambassador who values advocacy and youth empowerment. Rochelle has worked as a teaching assistant with the special needs and disabilities, as a student special educational needs and disabilities teaching assistant, high level teaching assistant, and cover supervisor. In addition to this, she is also a mentor and support worker for young people. Rochelle enjoys sharing her educational journey with young people and contributing to making a positive change in schools while inspiring the next generation. As an educator, her passion is to reduce educational equality in whatever way she can. Thank you very much for joining us, Rochelle.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
Up next, we have Del Walker. So Del is a senior character artist working for Rocksteady Studios and has worked on the Batman Arkham games and upcoming Suicide Squad games. He graduated from De Montfort University in 2011 after studying a BA in game art. Del was also a guest lecturer and curriculum advisor at De Montfort University, giving biannual lectures to the university students and acting as an advisory role to some of the course briefs. Thank you very much for joining us, Del. Del, are you there? Can you hear us?
Sorry, got to figure out how this mute button works. Thanks for having me.
Still getting used to that. And next up, we have Joden Joseph. So Joden is an aspiring clinical psychologist who has current experience working within healthcare and clinical settings to support vulnerable adults with complex needs. His work is underpinned by global mental health perspectives and trauma-informed approaches to addressing psychological problems, particularly for those with African and Caribbean heritage. Joden's former vocational training within performing arts has informed his interest in exploring the intersections of race, ethnicity, culture, gender, and mental health through storytelling, creative expressions, and community-centered practice. Thank you very much for joining us, Joden.
Good, thanks. Thank you for having me.
And our final panelist, who's not just here yet, but should arrive within the next few minutes, we've got Bayo. So Bayo, having worked for many years in a leadership position within public, private, and voluntary sectors, Bayo became fascinated by the methodology behind professional achievement and how certain people would thrive where others didn't. Combining this passion and practical experience with his academic background, Bayo developed his own business coaching and mentoring practice. He focuses on helping people attain their professional goals through a carefully structured two-way dialogue, which encourages self-awareness and self-empowerment, enabling people to uncover their own solutions to whatever obstacles are holding them back. Bayo enjoys the complexity and rewards of being involved with charities, passionate about education and healthcare, supporting and developing organizations, entrepreneurial projects, and programs. Thank you very much for joining us, Bayo, right on time.
My apologies. You're right.
You literally arrived at the perfect time. So thank you all panelists for being here. It's a pleasure to host this event, a really important event that we're going to be talking about today. So the first question, let's get straight into it. The first question is about kind of where it all started. So first of all, I'd like to ask Charisse, did you always want to work in your current industry, or is it something that came later?
So funnily enough, I wasn't planning on even going to uni, and I spent a lot of time at home. So I took a gap year from college to uni. I took a year out, and I spent a lot of time watching CSI and NCIS, and I just thought it looks amazing. Like the character, I wasn't sure what their job was or what they were doing, but I just thought the whole thing looked amazing. And I found out that all the things they do are different areas of forensics. So they do like DNA, digital, sometimes, what is it called? I don't remember, all different types of forensics. And I ended up looking online to see if I could do any of these courses in real life, and Middlesex University was one of the top results. And I just thought, yeah, this is something I want to do. And I pursued it. And yeah, did that undergrad, that painful undergrad. And I finally graduated. Somebody gave me a chance, and I've been working in forensics ever since.
And you're enjoying it? Was all the pain worth it?
Oh, definitely. I don't know what I would be doing if it wasn't for forensics. I think it's one of the few fields that genuinely interests me. It's a lot of technology. I get access to a lot of phones that I would never be able to afford to even look at, to be honest. Some of these iPhone prices and these Samsungs, like £1,000 plus, I wouldn't even look in its direction, and I get to interact with them on a daily basis and just see the new features that are coming out on phones, and how technology is expanding so much. We can do so many things today on our phones that about 20, 30 years, people wouldn't even have dreamed of. And I'm just so grateful to be able to experience this firsthand.
Yeah, I can imagine that makes your role all the more important. Thank you very much, Charisse. So Del, you're a character artist. Can you give us an example of what some people wouldn't know that they should know about the industry?
Yeah, I mean, oh, gotta check I'm off mute this time. Yeah, so yeah, my role specifically, I effectively just make the characters that you see in the game. That's the best way to explain my job in the most productive way possible. But there are a lot of things that I get to see on the other side of the gate, because it's been something like 10 years since I graduated. So there's a lot that I'm seeing on my side that perhaps, you know, had I seen that when I was younger, would have changed my path. You know, one thing that perhaps people take for granted is just the amount of different nuance that goes into making a game that means that you have very different abilities that can become very useful. So, for example, people would assume if you're going to get to the game industry, you would want to do a course that is completely focused on like design or coding, or but you could be a very good graphic designer and do a graphic design type course, and from that spin off into a UI artist in video games very, very easily. If you show that you can lay things out extremely well and you understand topography, spacing, all these things that are often taught in university courses, you know, we never have enough UI artists. You know, every single time you see something in a game that has like you press pause, or you have a health meter, or you have something, someone who probably studied a graphic design course in college or whatever, effectively became the person who was hired to do that for whatever game you was thinking. So I think from my angle, the thing I don't really see much of is that knowledge of almost every type of course you could do can be bent or turned or like manipulated into a perfect game course. And also there's like the aspect of how much of this stuff would you need to learn potentially on your own or in a university course. And that question has now become much more of a pressing point because almost everyone who I studied with has now left the country to work in different game studios. All my like close friends. I just chose not to because I was really quite happy to end up at Rocksteady and work on Batman games, but opportunities arise. But you're not necessarily open to those opportunities if you don't have access to a good visa. And you're not going to get a H1 visa if you don't have a degree. So you could be amazing, but unfortunately, with the aspect of Brexit now being an issue, and with how much incredible opportunity there are in America, people sort of see that piece of paper before they pay for your visa. Yeah, I'd hope people keep that in mind when they're thinking, you know, like, oh, do I even really need this? You could be limiting your bank balance if you step away from university.
A lot of that actually really resonates with me because my undergraduate was actually in 3D animation and games at Middlesex University. And one of the things that you mentioned, which was really important, is just how many skills are involved in that industry. Like I studied 3D animation and games, and I learned things from lots of different industry backgrounds: graphic design, coding, character art. And although I work in marketing now, I still use some of those transferable skills. So a course like that really opens doors in lots of different areas as well, in the same way that you can come from lots of different courses and go into the gaming world in some capacity.
Yeah, totally.
So the next question is for Rochelle. So you're currently studying at Middlesex. So what were the most important skills that you learned while studying?
First and foremost, I'm going to say organization skills are so important in university overall. Again, you've got assignments, you've got deadlines, you've got, you know, if you've got societies that you're joining, you've got to keep up with so much. So organization skills was the first skill that I learned. Teamwork was the first skill that I learned. And funny enough, I've got a story to kind of go with that. So I am a very organized person, and being in different groups, for example, for presentations or for other type of group work, I found myself not being a team player necessarily because I couldn't understand my team. So I've learned to understand and respect other people and where they are and how they do things. So I've put teamwork as a really key skill that I've learned, not only throughout university, but I've taken that on throughout life. Dealing with different people. I've also learned time management because boy, you've got so much assignments, so much deadlines, so many things going on. So yeah, alongside organization skills, I'll put time management right there as well. And I've also learned interpersonal skills, which kind of again ties into teamwork. And the reason why I say interpersonal skills is important to me, or what I've learned at Middlesex while studying, is because you're dealing with so many different people, and Middlesex University is such an international hub. So for that reason, you're coming across so many different people with different norms, customs, etc. So knowing how to kind of navigate and be around different people and, you know, communicate and build rapport is important, not only just for university purpose, but just for outside of university, making friends, you know, trying to speak to your professors, and, you know, you kind of need to understand the type of people that you're communicating with. So yeah, interpersonal skills is what I have learned. So those are my four critical skills that I've learned while studying at Middlesex.
Thank you very much for that, Rochelle. And our next question is one relating to diversity in the workplace. So, Bayo, do you feel as though you've come across any barriers in getting to where you are within your industry or previous industries that you've worked in?
Is that to me, Andre?
Yes.
Sorry. The answer is yes, blatantly and subliminally. So just a backstory. So maybe not to where I am now, but probably. But so I graduated in '92. I studied law and economics, and I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a city lawyer, to be fair. But actually, at that time, I was too raw. Even though I went on to do a master's in law, went on to do my postgraduate LPC, etc., I was too raw. When I was going for the interviews at those sort of big six law firms, they made it quite clear that you might be academically there, but you do not fit in because of your background, socioeconomic, etc. So the answer to that is yes. And equally, during my sort of 30 years in social housing, there were times, and I can relate a story where a director of housing said to me quite blatantly, while I'm here, it's not going to happen. You're not going to be the executive that people think you should be. So those are those things. And then the subliminal things, obviously. But actually, at the end of the day, it's what I did to overcome those things, what other people need to do to overcome those things. And you learn from your mistakes, you learn from the successes, but you most definitely learn about how you overcome whatever obstacles in front of you. So, and then, you know, Andrew, we've spoken before, at each time that I found a real true brick wall, I decided to do something different. So I didn't become a lawyer, I went into social housing. I didn't become a chief executive of a housing association, so I set up my own business. And my own business is where it is. If it doesn't meet the goals that I've set myself over 5, 10, and 15 years, I'll do something different. And it goes back to what Rochelle was saying and Dale. You know, you get transferable skills as you grow. You get different knowledge, different experience as you grow. And at the end of the day, you just make the choice that is good for you at that time.
Thank you very much for that, Bayo. And our final question before we go on to our questions from the audience. So please do think of some questions and post them in the question and answer section. It should say Q&A at the bottom of your screen. And we'll put those questions to our guests. So you can direct it to an individual that you're interested in hearing an answer from, or if it's just a question on its own without specifying an individual, then we'll open it up to the whole panel to answer that question. So, Jojen, can you tell us a little bit about your journey to university and what university means to you?
Okay, I'll answer it in sort of two different sections. I'll answer the latter part first in saying that I didn't really consider going to uni for a very long time. And I think in terms of me deciding to go uni, I just felt that the kind of me wanting to be a clinical psychologist necessitated me enrolling onto a course that was sort of accredited or recognized. And so that's why I ended up pursuing university. But my journey sort of began in the performing arts industry. And so I think sort of my background growing up in East London, I didn't feel that there was much career pathways that I was particularly interested or I was shown. And so, yeah, I pursued acting. I was good at it. and I went to a good college, and then I went on to drama school. But I found that, my proximity to certain sort of psychosocial issues, i.e. Youth violence, mental health, and other such issues kind of compelled me to kind of make a transition in terms of my career pathway. And so I withdrew from drama school, relinquished my scholarship, and went on to study what I'm studying at Middlesex, which is psychology and counseling skills. And so, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much a summary of my journey. As I said, I'm where I'm at now in terms of studying psychology and counseling. I guess the pursuit is to go on to do sort of the clinical psychology role. And again, I think just reiterating what some of the other panelists have said around transferable skills, I've found that, even the work that I've done in the performing arts industry has kind of helped me in many aspects in the roles that I do now. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Jojen. Okay, now we're going to take some questions from our audience, and I can see we've got a few that have come forward already. So this one isn't to anyone in particular. This is open to the whole panel to answer. So please feel free to jump in. So the question is, so while you were a student at Middlesex University or your particular university, what support were you offered as a student, or was there any support groups you felt comfortable joining around you? And if it's been a while since you've been in the student environment, has there been any mentors along your journey that have been really supportive within your industry as well?
I could jump in quickly, I guess, and half answer before someone else gives a better answer. But I do think there is something to be said about finding a specific mentor. If you can find someone who does that for a living, and you just stay in contact with them. Like if you ever find you're in the presence of like a guest lecturer, or someone that knows someone, and they're just within the realm of something you're interested in doing, and just asking them for advice. Like people who are doing a job like professionally, their advice is never really asked. They're just like laid up to do a task, so they're usually quite open to answer direct advice, because the two things that come from it. One, you're getting information that can help you to value what you're doing, but two, it actually makes it more real. There's so much of a subconscious part to reaching a goal where you're just like, the reason you have a lot of people that will like steer towards a certain thing that they think gives them success is because they're in an environment where they see that is much more real. Like if you grow up in East London, you're more likely to become an MC because that's how you saw everyone in your circle become successful. It's easier for you to think of that process, and the same could be true for like whatever it is you're interested in. If you just try and keep someone around that like helps formulate that in your mind, that like, oh right, yeah, this person did it this way, like half their job is done just by you being in contact with them. It kind of keeps you on track. Yeah, I don't know how everyone else was about that answer, but I felt like that helped me when I found someone who was like in the games industry, and I like just keep asking them like more questions. So like, yeah, that would keep me running for another week, like one thing that they would say.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point that you make, and it just makes me think of representation. I know particularly in my industry, there seems to be a real paucity, especially when it comes to Black men in this industry. It tends to be white, female dominated. I'm talking about counseling and psychology as well, in some sense. I think that is important because I find not only in terms of what you were saying in terms of mentorship, I also find that even in the curriculum, you know, not being able to identify in sort of the journey of psychology or counseling, or having guest lecturers or anyone coming in of a background or heritage that is alike to my own, can make it very difficult to actually realize the career that you want, because you're not seeing anyone from where you're coming from actually achieving what you set out to achieve, and so that there's no real pathway for you in that sense. So I would agree with that. In terms of support, I would say I've been, in terms of my own personal journey, I think I've been in a space where I've been able to accept support, and I think that is an important stage in my journey. And so I think this year, I was come to understand that I struggle with dyslexia, and so I've received certain support around that, and that's been quite helpful. I recognize now, in doing a lot of work with the counseling and disability team, that many people are just not aware of the support available. I've also had support from the counseling services. At the time, I didn't find it helpful, so I withdrew quite quickly. But again, since then, I've worked with the, you know, those departments to try and improve those services for people of African and Caribbean heritage.
Thank you very much, Jordan. Anyone else like to answer that question?
Just very quickly. So when I started, there's obviously mentoring going on, because mentoring's been around since time immemorial, or coaching, whatever. But there wasn't no, I think Jordan's got it right, there was no representation of what I wanted to do. So I wanted to work in the City of London, thinking, why not? But when I got there, there was no reflection of myself. If you don't see it, you just don't get it. And when I got there, it was, wow. Not to say that a number of people didn't make it. My best friend he's a silk, and he's been a silk for 12 years now. And he was the youngest black silk in the country. But when we started, it was difficult. And so your mentor is there to help you navigate those peaks and troughs, in terms of, they say no, reflect, you say yes. But that's how the mentoring and support comes. And another thing we've got to realize as well, it's difficult for people to ask for help. And I like the way Jordan continually uses the word support. That's the new lexicon. If you ask for support, it's seen more worthy than you asking for help. But as I say to my clients, is if you don't ask, you don't get. And that's the bottom line. You've got to ask. In this world, it's not given to you for nothing. So support is key, but you've got to ask for it as well. If you don't ask, it might just wash over you, and you don't know it's there.
Thank you very much. And Michelle, you had a response as well.
Yeah, so just in regards to Boya's comment on, if you don't ask, you don't get. Middlesex has a range of different support systems. So for example, you've got the LSA, so you've got the LSA, which is the
SLA, I believe, Student Learning Assistant.
Support Learning Assistants. You've also got the GAAs, which are Graduate Learning Assistants, and you've also got the LET team on campus, which is again the Learning Enhancement team, which can help you with writing essays, structuring your essays, decompartmentalizing like your essay questions and so forth, and really just kind of breaking down your work for you. And again, all those support systems are there. However, it goes back to what Boya was saying. If sometimes, well, Boya and Jordan, sorry, we don't always know what support is there. So first and foremost, for any students applying to Middlesex, I would say get familiar with what support is there, because if you don't know, again, you won't know where to go. And in regards to Bayo's statement again on being bold, willing to get support, you need to be bold on getting support. Again, if you don't ask, you don't get. This world is a place where everyone's moving, everyone's got things going on. So I believe if you want something, you've got to go out there and ask. In terms of like mentorship, I've been, some people might call me a stalker, okay? And the reason being is because I'm going to stalk you if I need help. I'm sorry, okay? I'm going to hunt you down because I believe I've learned, I've become who I am, I've gone into spaces, because of my audaciousness. I've been very, very bold and willing to take risk. And hearing no sometimes is okay. So be okay with taking no is my advice to you. Be okay with someone saying no. You're not going to lose anything if you ask a question and someone's not willing to help. That's okay. But keep having that same will and drive, not only in education, but I would say outside of education. Get support. There's mentors out there. Use platforms like LinkedIn. It's a good way to find mentors in your particular field. And even if it's not in your particular field, you can, find people who are in that field or in different fields that can maybe guide you towards people, steer you towards people, towards whatever avenue you want to go down. So yeah, be bold is my one. Be a stalker like me too. And be willing to ask for help is my 3.
Great, thank you very much. I think what really stood out in that conversation was everyone's boldness when it comes to seeking out support, but also seeking it from their community around them, whether it be the university or your community within industry. And I think that's just a characteristic of those who might go through more struggles than others. I think like there's a reason why 1 in 7 Middlesex University students end up going on to start their own businesses and become independent, which is a really high figure. And I think that's because we have such a large group. I think it's just under 70% of our students are from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds. So where opportunities don't exist, they're creating them. And I think that's really impressive. So we've got our next question through in the Q&A. So the question is, how has the university experience impacted on your confidence, whether it be positive or negative, and where would you expect the support in nurturing that to come from?
Can I start, given that I'm a student?
Yep.
So university has taught me a lot, from again interacting with people to skills that I needed to learn and skills that I didn't have before. Sorry, Andre, could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, absolutely. So how has the university experience impacted on your confidence, whether it be positive or negative, and where would you expect the support in nurturing that to come from?
Yeah, so yeah, again, different interactions have it's hard. It's quite hard to say because again, it depends on yourself and how you internalize particular experiences, But for me personally, I feel like university's helped me to be more confident, to be more bold. I'm bold anyway. Like I said, I'm a stalker. So if I want something, I'm going to go find it. But I've had particular department leaders who have believed in me, who have seen certain things in me, and that belief within itself has built my confidence and made me more of a stalker. So yeah, that's what I would say in terms of getting support is the second part of the question. Yeah.
Yeah, where would you expect that support to come from?
Again, be bold to ask for it, but also understand that you're in an institution and a hub which is required to help you. Is their right? They have to help you. From your lecturers to people at the help desk to other students, your cohorts, you know what I mean? Well, maybe your cohorts don't have to help you, but again, staff members are able to help you and are willing to help you, and it's their responsibility to help you. So in terms of where the support can come from, that hub outside of university, I can't speak for, but yeah, on campus, that's what I would say.
Thank you very much, Rochelle. Anyone else like to add to that?
Yeah, I'd like to jump on this question because I feel like it's almost safest for me to speak on this freely because I'm not affected by the Middlesex institution. So I want to say that initially it damaged my confidence. Initially, the university experience, because I think there's a crossover point that happens, and you can make a decision on how you want to accept it when you realize I'm not really getting the support I need. I'm not really getting taught the things I wish I was getting taught. I'm not really perhaps getting the same level of guidance I had previously. And then it's a crossover point where you have to realize you're actually in formal higher education. And creative courses hide how much you're supposed to be doing on your own. It's a lot easier to see that you're supposed to be doing a lot of your own learning on very formal courses that are academic, like highly academic. If you're in a biology course, they give you like a framework and then just like, here are the concepts we want you to go and learn yourself. We're not going to tell you, we just want you to go and learn these concepts. And here are the ways in which we want you to try and apply them and show that you understand the process. It's up to you to read all the books, like go online and do all the necessary hard, dirty work to get yourself to a level where you can be like, right, I am a performing member of society because I went through higher education, and 65% of the time I was teaching myself just with some guidance. Creative courses sometimes are a bit like sexy in the sense that they don't necessarily seem like that's the process, but trust me, that's the process. If you feel like you're not really being taught this very specific thing that you need to, you're very fortunate that you're born in the 21st century and that you have incredible access to know and find out this stuff. Like, you really don't have many excuses. The fact someone's giving you a framework, say, look, here is what we're expecting at the end of this semester or this course, try and achieve this as well as possible. If someone said, we're going to give you £1 million if you can do this semester very well, promise you, you will find out how to teach yourself that and come out with like amazing results. It's a lot to do with your own personal drive. And so I want to talk about like, if you feel like your confidence is being knocked, perhaps because, you know, the university experience isn't necessarily what I'd hoped for, blah, blah, blah. Like, try to remember you're in higher education and your confidence is a little bit in your own hands as well as your drive. And they're very much linked and symbiotic.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I think, to be honest, I think you was quite kind to the university in saying that. I think actually it is independent learning, but I still think it will be remiss to forget the fact that they also should be teaching us things that are reflecting the community they wish to serve. And so I can speak for myself as a Black man studying psychology and counseling, not having no other Black man in the on my course is discouraging. And furthermore, having to, if I want to, you know, in terms of Black psychology that isn't taught, just any perspective that is not Eurocentric is not being taught, and again, it is quite damaging. And again, it may have something, it may have implications as to why Black people are not engaging with certain services. And so I think there has to be something to say about that. But to the uni's credit, if I could say that, you know, I have worked with a lot of staff members to address some of these issues, and I'm always in conversation with staff about these issues. I think, you know, people go into these institutions. Again, we are paying for it. This is not free. We are paying for this education for a piece of paper. At the end of the day, it is only right that we learn something that has something to save for our future. often people make the joke about learning maths at GCSEs and how most of what you learn at that level is irrelevant when you get into adulthood. And, you know, I'm not saying it's necessarily the same at uni level, but it will be a shame to think that you spent all that money, you spent all that time not to learn a thing about who you are, where you're coming from, or to be able to help your community based on what you've spent time learning. And so I feel there is a need for them to facilitate learning around diverse group of communities, because at the end of the day, that's who we want to come out and serve when we finish.
Okay, I'd like to add a point. So in terms of that question, on how the uni experience impacted my confidence, I would say it's helped it, especially around third year when I had to work with a lot of people who didn't really want to be on that course, and my grade depended on everyone's contribution. And my only options were either to speak out or to drown. And at that point, I knew I didn't want to drown. And if I wanted something, I was going to have to speak out and do something. And it's something that I've carried on even today in the workplace. And touching on what Jordan said about him being on this course and he's the only Black guy, like in forensics is definitely not somewhere you're going to see a bunch of Black women. But even if you don't see somebody who looks like you, there always has to be a first. And sometimes someone might even look at something, and because you're there, they're like, oh, okay, that person looks like me and does this thing. Maybe it's something I can do. Because I remember being young and I wanted to do ballet. And I remember getting told, like, it's not something Black girls do. Like, don't do ballet. And now we have all these Black ballerinas, and it's just the representation is, yeah, there had to be a first. And now there are people growing up who are seeing all these Black ballet dancers. And yeah, just don't be afraid to be the first.
Can I add to that, please, Andre?
Yep, go for it.
So I'm just going to flip the conversation. So 89. Yeah, 89 was when I went to Middlesex. There was a polytechnic at the time. So you got to understand there was a difference between polytechnics and universities. I was born and bred in Brixton. I didn't know about universities. I wasn't interested. But my old man believed that education was important. And although he and his family, his siblings, no one went to uni, he wanted me and my siblings to go to uni. So it was forced upon us. But even then, I still chose to go to a polytechnic because I didn't want to go leave London, blah, blah, blah. So what did it do for my confidence? Unbelievable, because I grew up 81, 83, 87. That's the three major Brixton riots. And we were labeled as dysfunctional, disillusioned, downtrodden young Black men with nothing to think about for their future. But when we got to poly and we got to see other people, and I literally mean other people, I think, Andre, you said 70% of the students are BME. I think it was flipped when I was there. The whole year or the whole whatever courses, there was just very few of us. So you had to grow in confidence, you had to grow in stature. In terms of what you could do and how you could do it, it's quite simple. You go to law, you go to economics, and you learn it. The world has moved on in terms of support mechanisms and how you learn and where you learn. There's no internet, there was no email. It was, you know, you go to the library, you pick up the books and you do notes, and then you go home and you regurgitate the notes. But it did build confidence because at the end of the day, I think Adele said it, you're left to your own devices. And sometimes that's the only way you're going to grow. You're left to your own devices. You have an objective. You want to get a degree. If you're not loafing, you will get the degree because you're left to your devices. So it really did build confidence in me. And then when I realized that actually there are other universities that you could go to, red brick universities, for example, or universities that are closer aligned to what you want to study, where you want to be, Middlesex gave me the confidence to say, no, I will now go to this next university to get the degree that I think I deserve. So it is a journey of give and take. It's a journey of ups and downs. But as you said, to be first, yeah, definitely wear that badge with pride, because one of the things that you'll learn is when you open that door as the first person, it's easy to shut the door behind you. Very easy, because they make it hard for you. So be the first and leave that door open so many others can follow.
Absolutely. So
Andre, could I just add one more point?
go for it very quickly. We
Yeah,
got
I was gonna say, because I know a few people have said be the first. My point was just to say that I don't think I am the first, and I don't think in many of our industries we are the first. There are many, you know, people that have sat in that position, and my question is, how long would that go on? But in saying that, you know, there have been individuals, teachers, lecturers who have, you know, definitely built confidence, you know, some who even planted the initial seeds about me thinking about doing a doctorate. So there is definitely two sides of the coin in terms of thinking about your own sense of accountability and what you can do for yourself. But I just feel that we have to recognize the context that we're in, and you know, there is stuff beyond just personal will and ambition. You know, there is stuff beyond that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that panel. Some really powerful words there. And it reminds me of something of what Barack Obama once said, which was that despite the challenges and despite the struggle, and despite that sometimes things are unfair and that can be exhausting, it's our responsibility to take control of our own lives, and it's our responsibility to be the role models that we're looking for. And he talks specifically about how to just give up when times get tough and accept things as they are would be a betrayal to our ancestors and those who have fought for us to have this opportunity to be where we are. And I think everyone on the panel is testament to becoming those role models, and the opportunity is there for those people who are listening to become those role models too. And now we have a question from another person. So, and it follows on quite nicely as well, actually. So, hi everyone, my name is Natalie Blackburn, and I'm a very bold person who goes after what she wants. However, I live in a white area and work with white staff and customers. How do you become comfortable being uncomfortable in the workplace?
This is my favorite question so far. This is an answer that's quite close to my heart, especially because I've actually worked in 7 different game studios around the country, and you know, first time you work in you step into the game industry, the first thing you do is like, you know, you're excited, etc. But you very quickly realize I'm in a building of 200 people and I'm the only one that looks this way. And you can quite easily change. You can quite easily find that your personality will change and how you look at yourself will change. So many of us know how to code switch. The way we talk to our friends is not the same way we perhaps talk to our parents' friends. The same is true if you're in a homogenous group where everyone looks like me versus I'm in a room full of people that do not look like me and I don't know if they're judging me. I have to adjust my behavior. Being a very bold person, that word bold means something very different depending on your gender and how you look too. And that's something you're going to find out very, very quickly. A bold Black woman is not the same as a bold white man. Like, they could easily be perceived as a threat for being confident. And you're going to experience that no matter what anyone says about how the world is moving and shifting. It's going to happen. Your boldness is going to get tested, and it's also going to be questioned. And if you're going to be moving into an environment where you're in under a different level of scrutiny, you're going to have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And like that's just kind of how it has to be, unfortunately. What's good is you can almost use it as a way of accelerating your confidence. So in the job before I was in now, I was a lead, and part of being a lead is, so I was at the time a 27-year-old young man who was in charge of 6 other people, all of which were white, and most of them were older than me, and I was managing them. There would be times when I would have to go into lead meetings where we would speak to directors or have conferences with people from either Microsoft or Sony, and I'm in a conference room and I'm the only one who looks the way I look. If I show up scruffy, that is a very different perception than if someone who looks white shows up scruffy. Like, there's loads of undertones that can test your boldness, and you're going to have to make a decision on how you're going to navigate that. So yeah, I mean, Bayo can probably explain this a lot more because he's probably had it at an amplified level. Like, I've at least had people I work with who listen to Jay-Z. The generation above me, I don't know if that's true. Like, so there is a bleeding of cultures that makes things a little bit easier every year. But yeah, my biggest advice is to just be like, remember that your confidence and your boldness is going to be tested and questioned, and be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Bayo, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I'll take that invite on.
Okay, yeah.
I'll just ask yourself, Natalie, a diamond. A diamond is not a diamond when it started off. It's a piece of coal. And it went under severe pressure, constant pressure, in order to become a diamond. So you've got to be uncomfortable to be comfortable in order to be where you want to be, because that's life. If you stand still, the world passes you. Simple. It's simple physics. If you want to get on, you go with the flow, or actually you become a disruptor in the flow and create your own flow. So yeah, I mean, my work in life, I'm a coach, I'm a mentor. Who are the best coaches and mentors in the world? Apparently Tony Robbins, apparently X, apparently Y. But that ain't the case, because there are great Black mentors, there are great Asian mentors. It's just that we're not given the opportunities to meet and speak with them. I'm into football, I'm into sports. And for the life of me, Arsene Wenger used to say, do you think that Lewis Hamilton is the only great Black driver that there could be? Before him, it was unheard of that there would be a great Black driver. Tennis, golf, football, in fact. But until those doors are open and you push those doors open and you go through them, that's when you know that you're a disruptor. That's when you know you've been made uncomfortable, and then you become comfortable. And as Dell says, that changes with generations and generations and generations. I'm of an era when Michael Jackson was the only artist allowed to be played on MTV. That's unheard of. I don't even know if MTV is still around nowadays, but anyway, the bottom line is that was the biggest platform, as big as YouTube, and yet he was the only Black artist allowed on it. But once he got through there and disrupted, the rest of the say's history. So yeah, it's good to be uncomfortable. Otherwise, you will not become that diamond that you aim for.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I'll just say, you know, I'm curious about what is it that is pushing people forward, and I just believe it's vision. You know, you have to have a vision. You have to have a set of principles that you believe that are gonna keep motivating you on your journey. And I would say, you know, be comfortable with other people's discomfort about your vision, where you see yourself going. And you know, one thing that I would say is that be careful of this idea of assimilation. I find that in any setting that you find yourself in, you can kind of try and assimilate to the majority group, try to mimic them or be like them, sound like them, just like them. Find your own voice and be authentic to who you are, you know. And again, you know, whoever you are, whoever you want to be, let it be aligned with your vision, let it be aligned with the principles you set out for yourself, and you know, you will find the right people gravitating to you, and you develop in your career having known that you've remained authentic, and you have some level of integrity about your journey, you know. So yeah, that's what I would say in terms of thinking about that. Don't
Yeah,
get too
just to add
caught up. Yeah.
just to
Go
add
on.
one sentence to what Jordan said. I totally agree about like being careful about how much you adjust yourself. Like, because you can be forced into a point where you've code switched to adjust your behavior to the point where you're not only uncomfortable anymore, you're not even yourself. And so when I say be comfortable being uncomfortable, you're gonna have to practice just performing well, but also not diminishing who you are. That's like a life lesson you're gonna have to figure out on by your own. Like, how much do I want to see? How much do I want to like show that, you know, I'm a good performer? But do I feel comfortable bringing like jerk chicken to lunch today and these people seeing it? Like, do I feel so much that I need to code switch that I can't even be who who I am? And yeah, just be comfortable being uncomfortable. Just if you're performing well, it shouldn't be a problem.
No, I used to bring amala eba. I'm a Nigerian. I brought it in. It's what I ate. Brought it in. But as you said, there is a fine line though, because sometimes in a team you have to wear team colors, you know,
Yeah.
and so you adjust accordingly like a chameleon. But at the heart of it, as Jordan, and what you're saying is, be your authentic self. Be in the moment. There are things that you need to do what you need to do, but by being you, you will do them. So yeah, be in the moment, be authentic, but equally, don't be afraid that you had to do what they asked you to do, because that's a stepping stone. Because at some point, you'll be asking others to do what you want to do.
Right. So all of our panelists are going to get the opportunity to have 30 seconds of closing thoughts. You can be in response to that last question if you wish. But before we get into that, I'll give you guys a chance to think about what your closing remark is. So thank you to everyone who's come along to our session today. So we've had some really important stories, messages, and conversations, which I'm sure will be valuable to all of our guests. And we'd like to close with some very short final closing words from our panelists about considering higher education, considering a career path in your industry, or preparing for the world of work with the challenges that you might face. So I'll let you guys jump into it in case anyone's ready. I don't want to put anyone on the spot.
Are we waiting? Can I
Yep,
be?
go ahead.
Yeah, what I say to the people I mentor, and the question I ask people I coach is, you learn from the past in order to plan for your future, but live in the present. You can only control the controllable. But with all the above, celebrate the successes, because that's your reservoir of resilience, that's your reservoir of your self-worth, and that's your reservoir of authenticity. Celebrate your successes.
Amazing. Anyone want to jump in next?
I'll just jump in. In terms of going into higher education, jump in on the challenge. It's going to be a challenge. It's not going to be easy, but be okay with change. And yeah, just go in and be yourself and take risk, and yeah, be a stalker like me. Yeah, that's it.
To the next person. Thank you very much.
I would say whatever you're studying or planning to study, just look at where it can take you, what you want to do with that degree, and also remember that what your degree is in might not necessarily be what your job is in. You have all the power. The world is your oyster. You know, just take control.
Thank you very much.
I would say again, just focus on your vision, and figure out what path is best suited to realize that vision. Again, uni is great. If whatever your vision is necessitates you going to uni, go to uni. If you can find other innovative ways of achieving your goal, do that also. Just figure out what's best for your vision.
Thank you. And finally, Del.
Yeah, I want to remind people that like going into higher education doesn't mean that you necessarily have the plan solved. I actually went in not knowing at all what I wanted to do, and the plan formulated while I was in higher education. And that's a lot easier to do when you're in education than it would be if you enter the working world. But your mind is very occupied the moment you start working full time. For you to even like take a second to think about like, okay, what do I want to do? Is this working? You know, like, or maybe I want to pivot here. So I don't believe that you need to go to university with the mindset that the plan is completely formulated. I do think you have to have some kind of direction, which is what others have said. But the plan might formulate itself whilst you're there, and it's incredibly unlikely you're going to step away afterwards and be like, that wasn't worth it. Like, I've never heard someone say that wasn't worth it. They might have said maybe that wasn't the course for me, but the skills I got on this course was so easy for me to apply to this other thing, or when I applied for this other other career opportunity over here, they appreciated the fact that I took the time to sit in higher education for XYZ time. It shows that I'm serious. Yeah, like it's, you don't have to have it figured out. You'll have it, but you'll have a lot more figured out afterwards.
Thank you very much, Del, Bayo, Jordan, Charisse, and Michelle. And thank you for coming along to our MDXequals Diversity and Inclusion Careers Panel event. This will be made available on demand at a later date. Thank you. And that brings a close to our session. Goodbye all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks for your time.
Brilliant.